Hey YouTube. So this is actually a request from a family member. My brother is out of power currently in upstate New York because there was a big storm that came by. And after a recent hurricane, I put this battery pack together. Bit of story. This is just a really crappy Tupperware container. But bit of backstory. I'm a mechanical engineer. I went to school, got my degree in mechanical engineering, and then I got hired by an electrical engineering company. And go figure, I used very little mechanical engineering in that company. I did work with power systems. I did some work on wind farms. I did some work with renewable energy, solar farms, large-scale stuff. And then I worked with some systems that they were using, some proprietary systems they were using in order to create power off of battery backups and things like that. I'm not an expert in this, but I do have a lot of first-hand experience in it. That said, this system is really cheap, thrown together. You can tell by the junky garbage container. So here we go. Underwhelming, I get it. These are two 12-volt car batteries. These are old Volkswagen Beetle car batteries. This is actually a new one that I bought as a replacement. And then this is an older one, but they're both wired in parallel. This is a 12-volt system. And the idea is that these batteries are able to power a simple 12-volt inverter. So this little inverter can power two AC outlets. It's a 500 watt inverter, which means don't power anything greater than 500 watts on this. Having batteries in parallel will allow you to have more capacity to those. So if I were to plug this up, and I'll show you how to do this in a second. If I were to plug this up, I can charge basic USB electronics, and I can plug like a refrigerator in here. Not too much else, but this is enough where if I have an isolated circuit, it will not power a house. But if I have an isolated circuit or power tools, refrigerator or chest freezer, things like that, this will power those for like a day or so. So why car batteries and not a better, more professional option? Well, first off, I think it's important to be realistic about the time that we're expecting these things to work for us in between charges. So these two car batteries you can get from any car. You don't need a specific size or power of car battery. These don't have, stay out of there. These don't have a ton of capacity, but the value is you can find them anywhere, and you can find them relatively cheap. Each of these are about $100 or $120 car batteries you can find all over the place. So you can also use gently used car batteries. You don't have to use a brand new car battery for this system. Just to go over some of the stuff that I have in this kit, and it is kind of set up as a kit. I do have, I am going to be careful. Now I have a metal wedding ring, but you have to be careful whenever you're contacting car batteries, because even though the voltage is really low, the amperage is really high. So when you're using car batteries or any kind of large DC power, you have to be really careful you don't short the negative to positive terminals. So if you have any kind of metal or you're using any wrenches, make sure you use electrical tape on those. So these batteries are identical. You can see they're hooked up. These are, I believe, 2 wire gauge, 600 volt insulated wires that I got off of Amazon. You can terminate your own. These were just more convenient because I didn't have any of the other equipment that I needed for them. I also have a 12 volt battery, 12 volt LED indicator, voltmeter specifically. You can also just use a standard voltmeter for this. It's hooked up over here. It says 12.5 volts, and that's the voltage in both of these batteries because they're in parallel, so they're sharing voltage. This is a battery tender lead, so if you ever have like a motorcycle or anything, you're familiar with these. But this way I can hook it up to my battery tender that's in the garage, and I can keep these topped off at 12 volts. I could also just keep the battery tender on here to make sure they're maintained. The battery tender will make sure all the voltage is taken care of. Over here, I am starting to get into ham radio stuff. So this is my little book. It has various, like this, the NOAA frequencies for a radio, so I can check out weather reports or anything like that on my radios. There's other weather radios and things you can get. This is my little power adapter for my ham radio that plugs into 12-volt system, and this is my programming cable for my little Baofeng radio. I haven't plugged this in yet because I just had this lying around. This is a USB power adapter that hooks into a 12-volt source. So because I have that kind of in my inverter, I'm not going to worry about that. But let's hook up the inverter and just see what we can do kind of on its own. So we're going to do negative line first, and then the positive, and oh, look at that, we got power. We'll find something to plug in here. So right here, just as a demonstration, this is plugged in just to my little power bank, and now we have a grow light that's powered off of a grow light bulb that's powered off of my DC batteries. So this is something that you could do if the power is totally out. You could still have, obviously a light bulb is not the best use of your energy, but you could still set up something like this in order to provide emergency lighting, to charge accessories, to power radios, things of that nature, so that, you got to be careful with those lines, things of that nature, so that you could make it a day or two or three without power a little more comfortably. This is in my basement next to my chest freezer, so I can power my chest freezer off of this if I needed to, and not have any kind of concerns that bad things were going to happen to my food over the course of like a day or two without power. If you're really skilled in the ways of electricity, you can also set this up to power, like if you have a natural gas furnace or something, you can use this to power the controller of the furnace. I know it'll last weeks with the amount of power in here and the amount of power a controller uses. But, again, like a refrigerator or something, you're looking at a couple of days, maybe a day or two, depending on the duty cycle of the fridge. So this is something for you. 2 car batteries. This is a 500 watt inverter. This is like $30 on Amazon. 30 or $50. You can get better ones. And then miscellaneous 12 volt accessories. You could also put a cell phone power adapters or things like that in here if you wanted. Again, not an emergency, long-term emergency kit, but this is something you can have in your garage, especially if you need to like charge power tools or run an electric chainsaw or something like that. So there you go. Safety note: it's good to have a cover. You saw that I had cats running around. You don't want cats to jump and bridge the terminals. See you guys.